hundreds of prosecutors are going on the record saying Trump is guilty of obstruction.
Yeah, I got this one from Crooks and Liars.
Yeah, I like that. I like that venue.
Yeah, it's so
Or
far.
I guess venue is the wrong word. What is it? News outlet.
Yeah, and so far I find myself pretty much anytime I see something from them, I know it's worth reading. So far,
yeah.
I like their first opening salvo, as it were. It says, as of this writing, 379 former federal prosecutors have gone public and on the record signing this letter stating that, of course, the evidence that Donald Trump committed obstruction of justice is enough to prosecute. If it were not for the OLC rule that William Barr has decided protects him from prosecution. And they make sure to point out it's a rule, not a law.
Right.
I think that, I mean, that's, after that, they just have basically the letter.
Well, yeah.
The whole article.
And I mean, we've talked about this before, but the problem with this situation is you have one group of people who is reading reading it or not reading it in bad faith and saying this document proves this person's innocence. And then there's the rest of the world who can read 5 pages or less of the document and know that it does nothing of the sort. And so I don't know how effective pointing out the magnitude of it is. It's not going to change any of their minds. But what that should point out is there's no gray area here. It's unprecedented, the amount of corruption that's going on. And just in general, this whole, where's the swamp at that he was going to drain? If this isn't the swamp, like what is?
If anything, rather than draining it, he brought in buckets to continue to fill it. I mean, all of his appointments to various cabinets and other things that we've talked about. I mean, all I see is he's just taking sewage and dumping it into the swamp.
Yeah, that's the distillation of that story. Is all these prosecutors are saying, nope, you're right, he's sewage. Next, a sensor has been created to detect if milk is spoiled.
Yeah, really simple, really straightforward. Yeah. Fizz.org, again, one of my favorite sites. Basically, it's just it looks like a little chemical pack from what I can tell with chemically coated nanoparticles, and they react to the gases and the bacterial growth in the milk. So it basically would just sit on the cap of the milk and it changes colors. But this way you wouldn't need to know, wouldn't have to open it, taste it, sense it, any of that. So I thought it was kind of interesting. It's a step forward, they claim, in figuring out how food spoils, and we might see other such things on various products in the future. For me, I just thought, oh boy, that's neat. Like, that's a neat little,
Oh boy.
Well, because
that's a neat one.
Because technically speaking, you can consume milk at any step. It just tastes sour. So even when it goes bad, you can still eat it and not get sick, as long as it's not actively growing like mold and things of that nature. Right. And obviously there's some cheeses or some exceptions where you want the mold, but that's another story.
Yes.
So I just thought it was interesting, and I thought it was a good step forward for basically health and things in general, because safer food.
Yeah. So next, Pelosi is saying that we need to stay to the center, because if we try and elect a radical liberal, the result would be that Trump will refuse to abdicate the throne. I think that's ridiculous. Not that I don't think it's ridiculous that he would try to not give up power. I think it's ridiculous that we would vote for a shitty candidate because we want there to be such a decisive victory that we think he won't try and destroy the country and usurp power and become a dictator.
Yep. She specifically says if we win by 4 seats, by 1,000 votes each, he's not going to respect the election. That's a direct quote from the New York Times.
Well, here's the deal. This is disingenuous, because if Bernie Sanders runs, he'll crush Trump. Every poll indicates that. Trump is right now the most unpopular president in modern history. He has the lowest numbers. He's so vulnerable in this coming election. And the Democrats just want to try and swoop in. I would say that they could probably win with a lot of the candidates that they're fielding, because Trump is so polarizing. But the secret is if we did run a radical leftist, a socialist, he would win by a landslide. And so all she's doing here is serving her corporate masters, feeding the center monster.
Well, we spoke earlier about, old white men, and she's one of them, except for, she's a woman. So maybe we should try to develop a better term, because this is just more of the same dumb crap. Because, I mean, if you thought about this for even more than a few seconds, like, what she's implying is that our world leader right now is so dangerous that he will attempt to become a dictator if we don't stop him. And her solution is, well, we just need to protect the status quo. I just think that's crazy. Like,
that's
if
their
that
argument.
Much of a threat,
always. It doesn't matter what's going on. They will always come up with a reason that what we should do is elect somebody that's in the center.
Well, for me, if he's genuinely that much of a danger, then like we should make moves to stop him now. Like that's crazy. Like if it's that dangerous, like why are we allowing him to continue to wield power?
Because he was elected. Legitimate.
Yeah, but I mean,
there's
impeachment. There's impeachment process and things that we can go through. That like, if he's actually that much of a danger, like we need to be doing that now, not because of the obstruction and things like that.
No, I disagree. I don't think we should be impeaching him.
Oh, I don't either. But I also don't think he's going to try and just, like become a dictator and hold on to the power. Like I don't think the system is quite there yet. I think the whole thing is kind of hyperbolic, but if it were possible, like we should take drastic measures instead of just saying like, well, this is bad.
Right. All right. Next, this is Kurt Bardella.
Yeah.
So you had told me about this piece, and I mean, I guess this is all connected. This is he's arguing that Trump has basically destroyed the system of checks and balances.
Yeah. So it's related to Barr and the GOP in general, just kind of standing by while subpoenas and judiciary requests and things of that nature are just being completely ignored by the administration, all backed by Trump coming forward and saying, I don't need to cooperate, which we talked about in another video. And, the investigation's over. I'm exonerated, yada, yada. He makes this argument in his opinion piece that this is a direct attack against the system of checks and balances because the Congress is essentially powerless to do anything if he refuses to acknowledge these subpoenas, which is basically what's going on. So that was pretty much the thrust of the whole thing, is that he's undermining the checks and balances and that it's a very bad thing. And I happen to agree that it's definitely bad.
No, this is the problem with everybody that sells you this idea that, well, all the presidents are bad, therefore we shouldn't talk about how bad the current one is. Because when you buy into that narrative, you let shit like what's happening right now happen. And what he's doing, like I've never seen anything like this. I've never heard of anything. Has this ever occurred where another elected, or not elected in this case, he was an appointed official, but a super high ranking official in the U.S. government is actively refusing subpoenas from Congress? Is that a thing that's ever occurred?
Well, it may be maybe a gaping hole in my history knowledge. The article mentions Nixon doing similar things, but I don't think Nixon did it to the extent we're seeing from Trump.
Well, and Trump has said now that he's telling other people not to listen to or respond to the subpoenas.
Yeah.
So that's a sitting president actively telling other people to ignore subpoenas from the Congress. Like, that's fucked.
Yeah.
Next. This last one, it's going to be a little bit old for whoever's watching this, because, as I said, this is going to go out about a week and a half from now. But I just don't see how we can't talk about this tweet from Chase. I'll read it here, even though I'm sure everybody has already read it. Why is my balance so low? Bank account, make coffee at home. Bank account, eat the food that's already in the fridge. Bank account, you don't need a cab, it's only 3 blocks. I guess we'll never know. Bank account, seriously? Um, number one, why is the bank, any bank, tweeting shit? Why is this a thing? In what kind of fucking disgusting, dystopian, fucking ridiculous world do we live in where a bank can do something like this and not have the government come in and just destroy them? If I was the emperor, you're not a bank anymore. you just got bought out. The idea here, because they're peddling an ideology here. What they're literally saying in this tweet is, stop vilifying our disgusting banking practices. Because you drink too much coffee and you don't know how to spend your money. It's not my fault that you're fucking poor. That's what they're saying there. And it's so disingenuous.
Yeah, they're literally saying we are this giant financial monster telling you don't spend your money on luxuries like food, going out to eat, or cabs. And meanwhile, they have all these predatory practices of crazy interest rates, overdraft fees, yearly fees, all these other things that, disproportionately hurt poor people. And nope, that's okay. Just don't buy coffee.
Yep. That'll save you if you... And it's the same type of argument as, well, if you're on food stamps, you shouldn't ever buy candy. If you're poor or if you need help, you should never get to enjoy anything. You should only have access to the bare minimum of what allows you to continue to be alive. Anything that you do that makes you feel good or that you enjoy, that's not covered under our generosity. And I think that's disgusting. And then there's this other level where I feel like it's a stab at millennials in general. Because what they're saying is that, oh, if you weren't going out so often and if you weren't spending so much money on coffee, then you'd have enough money to pay your rent. And because that's what millennials are decrying, is that 60% or more for some of us of our total income goes directly to rent. And then if you factor in the other bills that the ones that are mandatory, electricity and water, because you can't not have those things. You can't even just choose to not have them. They make you have them and you have to pay for it. If you add those in, you're talking sometimes as much as 90, 85% of somebody's total income. And then anything else that happens, you're just fucked. And you think that the biggest problem in this situation is that because people are so strung out on having to try and just fucking survive, that they take some small solace, whether it be a cup of coffee on the way to work, or a donuts in the morning, or whatever, a pack of smokes, whatever the fuck it is that they decide to buy. Don't smoke, it's bad for you. Then that's the problem. It's their excess. And that's what it turns coping behaviors into characteristics that they can blame your economic status on. I.e., it vilifies these behaviors that are only to be expected.
Yep. But when you're a rich, financial magnate and you're carrying your briefcase and your Starbucks coffee into work as you get out of the cab, suddenly it's a mark of success and a mark of, wow, look at that guy. He must be well-to-do because he buys coffee.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's the next level to talk about is, I don't think millennials are becoming homeless and failing to be able to buy homes and having to live with their parents, all of those things. I don't think the reason for that is that if they had money, that they just uncontrollably, they just fucking guzzle that coffee. Rent's due next week, and rent's 500, and I've got 501. Guess the rent's gonna be short because I'm going to Starbucks, baby. I don't think that's happening. I don't think that people are becoming homeless or having other financial problems because they have great food, nutritious, well-balanced food sitting at home, and they don't ever plan on eating it. It's just there, for looks. And what they open the fridge and they look at this stuff and they go, well, I'm just going to wait for that to rot. Let's go out and eat. Caviar, anybody? That's not happening either. And nobody's taking a fucking cab 3 blocks. You fucking pricks. And if they are, maybe they're disabled. Because a lot of poor people are disabled. And so, on every conceivable level, this is dishonest, misleading. It puts forward a narrative that is bad for poor people and that perpetuates stereotypes and status quo ideologies that should not be spread. You got anything else you want to throw in?
Fuck the banks.